J Bugbee, interviewed by Cindy Taylor.
Thank you for coming in.
It's my pleasure.
So, when did your family come to town?
Mid-40s.
Okay.
My father was very interested in boats and things, and so we lived in Bristol area, and every summer we would come down, and then he decided to buy a piece of property here, and he did. And it was on Buttonball Road, and that was a big piece of property that backed on the Black Hall River, and it didn't have any house on it. So he built a tool shed, and the next summer we all moved in. So it was like camping out. It was just one big room and no electricity. We had to go and get ice for the ice box from Montano's down by Soundview. And we had a wonderful summer of picking blueberries and going crabbing and things like that. So and he was going to retire here, but he didn't quite make it. So I don't know if you want to know, but my mother sold the property to Armand Romeo. So if you know where they lived,
Okay.
that was the house that he built there.
Okay. So he did put a house on it.
He built a nice house.
Okay.
And planted orchard and had a good time.
Nice.
Some of the times I remember best when we were little is that we used to go take a trip down the Black Hall River to Poverty Point. At that point, it was a point, not an island. And with a picnic lunch hamper, and we had to time it. Was always very careful to time it because we couldn't row back under the bridge if the tide was going the other direction.
Okay.
So I remember that was one of the scary things about our trip. We had to go when the tide was going out and come back when the tide was coming in so that we could make it all the way.
So when did you move full time?
When I married Dick,
Okay.
and that was 56.
Okay.
That's a kind of a fun story. The house next to us on Buttonball Road was owned by the Bibbies, and they were an elderly couple, and my sister and I used to enjoy popping in and chatting with them and all. And so about the time we were 12, or 11 or 12, we noticed that these two handsome blonde guys came and mowed the lawn for them, and it was their grandchildren. And so we thought they were pretty good looking. But then, when I was 15, and we used to go down to the town beach in order to go swimming, and lo and behold, one of them said hello, and we started dating, and that was Dick. We'd already knew who he was, but he didn't know us when we were only little, you know. So I like to tell people, I married the boy next door at the shore. Because that's what happened.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a little tidbit. So we used to walk to the beach from there, and we'd go by the Grimeses and the Black Hall. Golf course was, of course, not existent. There was a farm there, a big farmhouse, and the Tucker family lived there. And there was a girl our age there, Judy Tucker, and so it was kind of fun. And then as we were older, my sister and I used to ride our bicycles all over town. So it was always a fun thing to do. I remember the fish market, Heflin's Fish Market, and what I remember about it is the front porch had great big bushel baskets full of oysters. I mean, they didn't even have them refrigerated. They were out there, and different, a little different. And then my grandmother, my mother's mother, used to spend the summer with us, and she liked to go crabbing. She likes to pick blueberries. There were loads of blueberry bushes, and she would pick the blueberries and pick them over and put them in boxes, and then we would sell them to Reverend Hoag for blueberry pie, probably for $1. It was just a fun summer. We just had wonderful times there.
Well, what are some of your favorite memories of all the years living in town?
Favorite memories? I don't know. I always loved coming. This was always our favorite place to go in summer. Especially because there was nothing canned. I don't know. It was just being outside, crabbing especially. We loved to crab. And we'd like to row the boat. And then my father had a boat, eventually with with an inboard motor. And we used to tool around in that when we were teenagers. And if we weren't careful, we would get stuck. The mooring was in the channel, which was on the far side of the river where we lived, and we had to step home through all the mud sometimes, which wasn't very pleasant, but it was fun. We just had a wonderful time. And we just loved it. And we liked the fair, the old Lime Fair. That was before White Elephants, and they had the on the fairgrounds.
And that was right
Dancing.
next door, wasn't it?
Mhm.
Wasn't that next door?
It was, no, I can't remember now. It must have been behind Center School.
Yeah.
All kinds of fun things. It was a fun place to go. And finally, I missed my piano, so my father put it in a pickup truck with some friends and brought it down for me for the summer, so I'd have a piano to practice on. So it was just fun. So favorite things. I don't know. The church, I guess. Spent a lot of time in the church. I was children's choir director, and I was a regular choir director for a while. And of course the children went to the church, and we were married in the church, and they were too. It's so I think that's one of the big centers of our life. And when my father died, my son Rick gave a little speech, and he said, I don't think he ever lived farther than 2 miles from this church, because every place he lived was so close.
Right.
And when I married him and we were looking for a place, and I, started by renting and then looking for a place, and I thought maybe he'd consider Lyme or East Lyme. Are you kidding? So we ended up living, where, a stone's throw from the town hall, right in the center of town. Well, that's just the way it is.
And you taught piano for many years.
Yep. Well, I also taught music in the school system for 10 years.
Okay.
You were there in one of my students, were you not?
I think I was. Yes.
Probably. Those 10 years. Just,
Yeah.
I was always, and I always taught piano if I could, and I still do. So it keeps me. And the kids are so wonderful. This town, the people in this town are so loving, so nice. I just remember little stories. When Lori was a toddler, my youngest, and I had her out with me in the backyard hanging out the diapers, and I turned around and she was gone. And of course, she can't get far. And so I went around the house and looked, and around the house and looked, And finally, but she had gotten all the way up to the street, and who comes along in her car but Linnea Smith. And she had Lori. She took one look at Lori and said, "Oh, this must be a Bugbee." And that's way up from by the firehouse. She'd go out and hunt because that's where Linnea lived.
Yeah. Wow.
Isn't that something?
Mm-mm.
So
Wow.
it just was, everybody looked out for each other.
Mm-hmm.
And another time Lori got delivered home, the children went skating over on Library Lane.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess that's not there anymore. It was a very safe place to go. I think it was only this deep,
Right.
right?
Yep.
So it was icy. But if you fell in around a clump of grass or something, it wasn't a big deal. But she fell in and she got wet and cold and she wanted to come home. Or her brother and sister didn't want to come home. And so, you know how that goes. And so she was coming down Library Lane crying, and a lady went by and picked her up and delivered her home.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, I can't remember her name right now. But she lived over on Beckwith Lane, you know. It's just, people did that.
Yeah.
And
They did.
schools, and everybody is just so friendly.
A lot of us fell in that pond.
Yeah. Oh, I imagine. That's how you grow up. I mean, you learn how to do that.
It's a shame they let it grow in.
I know. Well, it happens, you know.
Yeah.
It's nature.
Mm.
It's just so much fun.
And it was a great place.
It was, and you know, at one point, I remember when my children were small, that without crossing the street, I think we counted 20 kids. Every house had 2 or 3 kids in the same neighborhood. And there was those 3. We were in the middle, of course.
Right.
The houses all around the edges.
Yeah.
So there's always somebody to play with.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all these families. And people looked out for each other, you know.
They did. And there were a lot of kids in the center of town.
There were.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Mundy family, well, there were the Marshes. And the house on the corner of our driveway had a number of the Muniers were there for a while. And, you know, there were just always somebody coming and going from
Yeah.
there. And then, of course, the Mondays and the Coles and
Mertz's.
yeah, Mertz's, right? And Travers, and just always somebody to play with. So, and it was fun. It was nicer in those days because we could just let them out the door.
Right.
Yeah, come home at not even such a time they didn't have watches.
Yeah.
You know, they just until I holler.
For dinner.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice time growing up with those kids.
Yeah.
And, but I remember my husband complaining about the traffic lights that went up. We didn't used to have traffic lights when he was growing up.
A lot of people complained.
Oh, yes, and they still
And somebody
complain.
took shots at the first one.
Oh, really?
One on Halls Road, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah. Some people
Yeah.
took a few pot shots at that one.
And nobody likes the one on Lime Street either,
No.
at that corner of Library Lane. And it's just a traffic slower down. I mean, what's wrong with that, you know? But it's
Doesn't work.
it doesn't, and it's noisy.
No. I was watching 18-wheelers doing about 45 down Lime Street this morning, just
Right.
blowing right through.
Right through that.
While 95 was shut.
Oh, yeah.
It was, yeah. I think the stop signs are more dangerous. Right.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I remember when we first came down, we'd drive down. I forgot how long it took, an hour and a half maybe. And we had to hope that the bridge wasn't open because it was a drawbridge on the river.
mm-hmm.
And so that was always interesting.
At the time, it's just right for that.
I don't remember how long it opened or anything, but it was always waiting for the bridge.
Right.
in the little things. And just a wonderful town. Another question?
What kind of changes have you seen since you've been here in town?
Well, I think the biggest changes are the fact that the businesses are no longer on 9th Street.
Mhm.
I used to send the kids for the mail. Used to go to A&P, IGA, hardware store, library, just out the door and around the corner kind of thing. And now you have to get in your car. That's one of them anyway.
Mhm.
My kids used to go to the store for Mrs. Sekla, down to the IGA.
Right.
She'd send them down for something and give them $1 or 10 cents or something. And everybody, you knew the people,
Yes.
that ran the store.
Right.
It wasn't just. So I said that I wasn't going to tell any secrets, but my husband used to send my son down to the hardware store to get cigarettes. Of course, he wasn't old enough to buy them. They were always for his father. But then, of course, he figured out, oh, that's the way I can get cigarettes, too. So I'm sure that sometimes they didn't end up in his father's pocket.
Right.
Right.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
much fun. But it was, and the stories, the 38 hurricane stories, I loved hearing those. And just, the school, of course, gotten really big.
Yes.
I don't know if that's bad, it's a good school.
You think it's better than it was when your kids were there?
No, just different. There's just more there. It always was a good school. Of course, now there's just so many restrictions, and you can't just let your kid go out the door and walk someplace, that kind of thing.
Right.
And that's everywhere, that's not just here.
Right.
But I remember, oh yes, we had a dog who didn't like to stay home, and he would go to school.
We did too.
You remember him?
Yes.
And so every once in a while, one of the children would be called to take the dog home. He liked to play with the kids in the recess.
Right.
And so my daughter Carol said that she was in class one day, and I'm not sure, it might have been Mr. Jewett. He was taking attendance, and he says, Carol Bugbee and dog. He was lying right there. They wouldn't allow that. They wouldn't even allow you to bring your dog home
No.
anymore.
No.
Yeah.
Cleo used to come visit school too.
Oh yes, I remember.
Yeah. Among other places.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's just so different.
Yeah.
I'm kind of interested because a couple of my student families now have chickens.
Yeah.
And, back in the old days, chickens, even sheep, right? Mrs. Barney had sheep, and right here in the center of town.
Yeah.
But
There's quite a few in the center of town now.
quite a few what?
Quite a few chickens in the center of
I
town
think
now.
so.
Yeah.
Yeah, Ned Coffee brings me some eggs every once in a while.
Okay.
My daughter calls them homemade eggs. They sure do taste better.
They do. They do.
That's nice too.
Yeah.
But I was thinking of it because this is not apropos, especially, but I get talking. My son's newest grandson. Henry is his name. And we visited. He
He's
came-
adorable.
He is adorable. And did you see the picture? 4
Yes.
generations. I think that was something.
Huh?
But that's my great-grandson. And for the other 2 great-grands, I wrote them a song.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, what can I do for Henry? And so I made up a poem. And I said, well, this isn't going to be a song. It'll have to be a book. And so as I was thinking of it, so I just thought, Henry, oh Henry, where can you be? Are you outside climbing a tree? Henry, oh Henry, where are you now? Out in the barn milking the cow? And I said, the cow. Dick's parents had a cow during the Depression, right on their property, a cow and chickens. And it made me think back to that, you know. And I said, are you hiding under the bed? Or in the kitchen baking bread? And Henry, my Henry, where can you be? Why, here you are, right next to me. Isn't that a cute little, don't you think it'd make a nice book?
That's cute.
And
Yeah.
so I have a friend who's an artist, and she's made pictures. And we're going to make a book.
Oh, that's nice.
Isn't that cute?
Yeah, that's wonderful.
Isn't that fun?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, it's fun. The family.
Did you write songs for your kids?
No, I didn't do much songwriting. You know what got me into songwriting was COVID.
Okay.
I couldn't go anywhere, I couldn't do anything. So I wrote some music.
Okay.
And I wrote a song for the baby before her birth, the first one, Claire, that we sang at the shower, the baby shower. And then I decided I better not neglect the one in Chicago, who was already 2, so I made him a song too.
Okay.
And with words and piano, you know, so they could play it.
Okay.
And so I didn't know what to do for Henry, so it's all settled. So that's kind of cute.
Mm.
That's nice. And you know, it's kind of strange, isn't it? That my 3 kids, 2 of them live right here.
That's nice.
Yeah. It's just a place that's home for them.
Yeah.
And not just because of me, it's just because it's old family.
Mm-hmm.
Just and knowing who's who and what's what. It's
Yeah.
part of, I feel like I'm part of the town, you know.
You are.
Not just somebody that married a native, you know.
You're part of the town.
And
Yeah.
I do enjoy everybody.
Mm-hmm. Well, you've been involved in a lot of things over the years, and
Well, yeah.
with a lot of us over the years.
We haven't gone far, so
Yeah.
I'm still able to do, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
Don't know how much longer, but that's all right too. But,
As long as you can.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's what we do, right? And you know, it's everything. It's things like the visiting nurse. What was her name? Noyes. Do you remember her?
Mary Noyes.
Mary Noyes.
Yep.
Yeah. My son Rick. Well, I was on the phone with my mother, which is when things always happened. Rick and Carol were running around through the house, and for some odd reason, he closed one of her fingers in the hinge side of the door. It was dangling. And I didn't know what to do, and so I called Mary Noyes. She came right there, you know, and it's just, there was always, you knew somebody that would always be there to help you.
Yeah.
It just was the way things were,
Mm.
yeah. And I don't know the people now at the school, especially,
Right.
but the ones whose children take piano from me are just as loving and nice as,
Mm-hmm.
you know, there's nice people in town,
Yeah, there are.
yeah. That's the best thing, I think, and it's a little bit backward we don't have to have the latest styles, and, you know, and keep up with the Joneses. And so that's always nice.
Yeah. Yep.
I don't know what else I can tell you.
How did you get into teaching music at the school?
Now, that's my degree is in music ed.
Okay.
And so when Lori was in kindergarten, the teacher at the music teacher at the school was Jim Mellinger. And he was the only music teacher. And the job was too much for him, so he stopped giving instruction, music, to the lower grades, and my kids were there, so I went in and complained. And then they gave me a job.
Okay.
That's what happens, right? The squeaky wheel. But I did. You know, I was trying to remember who the principal was then. Superintendent of school.
The principal was McManus.
Before that. And they lived in Lyme, and he went up to a Hartford job. I can't remember his name right now.
I don't remember who was before McManus.
But anyway, it was just one of those things. I just had a part-time job, which was just right. Half times.
Okay.
I went from school to school, mostly elementary.
Okay.
I did do middle school for 1 year. It drove me crazy. It wasn't my cup of tea.
I get that.
Yeah.
All right. Well, anything else you'd like to add?
The only thing is I can think of right now that might be interesting is the house we live in. When we first moved in was a two-family house.
Okay.
It was up and lower, upper and lower,
Okay.
and we rented the lower part. And then when we could afford it, we bought the house and opened it up. And it was built on the same plans as the Spears, Peter Spears, and Dr. Devitt's
Okay.
house. They had the same plan and the same builder, who was Dan Moore.
Okay.
And so it's a little different, but it's a really lovely old house. And just remembering those old things.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what old barn that Dick took down, but he loved the house and he loved the yard.
It's a neat house.
It is. It's big. Because I have a couple of friends say, "You're the only one that lives in this big old house?" And I said, "As long as I have my pianos and I'm teaching, that's where I'm going to be."
Well, thank you very much.
Well, thank you. It's fun to go down memory lane.
Mm-hmm.